So this question is from the 2019 paper 1. It's from section B, the living world. To what extent is human activity the cause of desertification in the areas on the fringes of hot deserts? Let's have a go at answering it. Obviously, this question, you get a choice. You can either do hot deserts or cold environments, depending on what you've been taught. We are going to take straight away the hot desert. Now, there are some images attached to this, which I don't have currently. We can answer it without it, okay? First thing we're going to do is box the command word. To what extent? We're going to underline human activity, cause of desertification, and we're going to talk about areas on the fringe of hot deserts. It's important that we get our case study in here, even though it does not specifically ask for it. Okay, this is a 9-mark question. No spag attached to this question on this paper. So the first thing to do, our introduction. We're going to introduce our case study. Okay, so we might say that human activity causes desertification in the Sahel, on the fringes of the Sahara Desert in Africa, to a large extent. That would tick all the boxes that we would require for our introduction. So we might say, to what extent? So you make that decision. We're going to talk about the Sahel, which is south of the Sahara Desert. We're then going to start talking about the human causes of desertification in the Sahel, because that is the drive of the question. So paragraph 1, the human causes. Now, there are several. We could talk about overpopulation, or the population growth, We could talk about overgrazing. I'm going to stick to something we've done a lot of. I'm going to stick with deforestation first of all. So deforestation is a major cause, a human cause of desertification. How? Let's explain it. So we cut down trees. We remove the root system. This loosens the soil. Becomes more exposed. And therefore prone to erosion from wind and heavy rain. Obviously, you've got to write that in full sentences, making sure you be very clear of how that leads to desertification. You could talk there about Burkina Faso. You could talk about any of the countries that you've studied in the Sahel. The next human cause we're going to talk about is overcultivation or overfarming. Because the Sahel is a poor region, we see mainly subsistence farming. If you combine that with the droughts and all the natural hazards that we have, this can lead to desperation, and it is intensive farming. The soil becomes exhausted. Because of that, there's no time to recover. It gets thinner, and again, more prone to erosion. There's 2 human causes. Our next paragraph is going to be talking about the natural causes, the physical causes of desertification. And we can bring them under one umbrella of climate change. Now, within climate change, we can talk about droughts, such as the 1970s in the Sahel. Within that, okay, we get a lack of moisture. soil becomes drier. And that can then kill vegetation. Leaving soil exposed. And prone to erosion. You could also then talk about the less rainfall in general. Okay, you could talk about changing or increasing temperatures. In the Sahel, it's expected to rise. This will lead to more evaporation. Less frequent rainy seasons. And that in turn will obviously lead back up to what we've just talked about here. So the squeezes on the bottom, my last thing we're going to talk about here is the conclusion. Because it's a to what extent question, it's really important that you express your view. Which is the most important? Which of these has the greatest cause of desertification? Is it the human? Is it the physical? We're going to make that decision now. So you make your judgment, and it's really important that you justify. You could argue, and a nice thing I've seen a couple of students do in the past here is link how even without the human activity, desertification happens. However, we massively exacerbate the issue. So it's justify your decision, make sure you've made a judgment, and make sure it flows. That should hopefully get us our 9 marks if you do all that.